Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to Tune In Tuesday. We are so thrilled this morning to be joined by the very lovely Dr. Jodie Richardson. And the great bit about today is Jodie comes with us. I'm not sure whether to call you Dr. Jodie. Is it okay to call you Jodie?
Of course, Jodie's great.
So Jodie comes with the experience of having of recently written a book which is called Anxious Kids: How Children Turn Anxiety into Resilience. She is also a business owner and a speaker in her own right, so she knows how to run a business as well as looking after two children, two dogs currently in life in lockdown in Melbourne right now. Thank you for joining us, Jodie. Is there anything I've missed? How are you going right now?
I'm going well, Kieran. Thank you so much for having me. I just want to point out the elephant in the room, which is the very large group of tree loppers who pulled up next door to cut down two large pine trees. So I really do apologise for any background noise, but I'm trying to practice some acceptance at the moment.
It's the crazy world we live in, life in lockdown. How is it going right now? How are you
Yeah.
managing it?
Look, reasonably well. It is a juggle, and one of the things that I'm really practicing at the moment is a lot of acceptance about the circumstances. We're in the stage 4 lockdown, so we've got the curfew. I don't think the kids, other than a walk, have left the house in weeks. We're in the fourth
Wow.
week of home learning, and there's a lot of reason to be anxious, and I'm trying to juggle all of that with my own work. And so I'm having to use a lot of the skills that I share with parents and teachers. And yeah, it's really nice to be able to be here today to share some sort of more broadly as well.
Thank you. And the type of people who tune into this are business leaders and also business owners. And the whole purpose of this segment is to give tips to help people tune up their business. Now, you know, and I know that if you haven't got your mental health right and your physical wellness, the business will suffer. Is that right? Is that your experience?
Very much so. And now there's the dog. This is not the norm for me. So yeah, absolutely. And one of the things I think that we all need to recognize is that we are not just working from home. It's not like, I normally work from home, but for those that don't normally, it's not like we've just relocated. There's so much more to it. So we are trying to do the best we can whilst we're in the middle of a worldwide pandemic. So I really do encourage people to remember that there are a lot of stresses and a lot of challenges, and not just in our own homes and our own families, but also around us with our loved ones and our friends. And so I think we really need to show ourselves a lot of kindness and a lot of compassion at the moment.
That's so good. And so here we are. Would you be willing to share with us what's your top 3 tips to help people navigate anxiety and this season right now? What's your first tip, Jodie?
Yeah, so the first thing I'd like to ask people to do is to recognize that anxiety is a very normal human emotion, just like frustration and disappointment, happiness and joy. It's a normal human emotion, and we experience anxiety when there's a very difficult challenge that's presented to us. We anticipate some sort of a threat around that challenge, whether it be doing a live presentation or doing something that's out of the ordinary. And those feelings that come upon us, it's a physiological change in our bodies and in our brains to help prepare us to stay safe. And so when the threat has passed or the stress has settled down and you've done the hard task, normally anxiety will settle down afterwards. So the one thing to look out for is anxiety that isn't settling, the anxiety that stays around, that hangs around, that starts to get in the way of normal everyday functioning. And this is within yourselves or your children or people that you love. When it starts to get in the way of everyday functioning, of happiness and well-being, and it's becoming extreme, that's when there might be more of a challenge related to anxiety that might benefit from some professional help. So my first tip would be recognize it when it's a problem and seek help.
So it's that idea of that constant monitoring, because we definitely go up and down during the season, don't we? So it's just monitoring, is this, how do I pick this from the unusual circumstances versus is this ongoing? That's good. And what's your second tip, Jodie?
So the second tip is around a grounding exercise, because when we get anxious, what happens is our fight or flight response kicks on. And in that happening, we have a whole range of physical changes. We have heart rate racing, we have breathing rate increase, we can have a flood of adrenaline in our system. We have trembling that can come from that adrenaline, a whole range of physical responses, plus a whole range of thinking responses as well. A lot of worries, a lot of just having a moment. I'm just going to seek out a little bit of support here. Hang on a second.
I love that. This is like how to deal with real life. I love this. This is just real life. Life in lockdown right now.
He's distressed because of what's happening. And so, yeah, this is
it's a live example.
It is. And, you know, I have to go to great lengths when I am presenting for clients. I go to great lengths to, you know, most of which is controllable, some of which is not. So in terms of the physical responses and the worries and the catastrophic thinking, one of the things that we can do to help settle our system when we become really anxious is a grounding exercise called dropping anchor. And there's a really great acronym for this exercise, which is ACE, A-C-E. So A is firstly the acknowledgement of what you're experiencing. So right now, if I were to acknowledge how I'm feeling concerned about the excess noise and the interruptions. I can acknowledge and accept that at the moment these are my circumstances and I can only control so much of them. So the first part is that acknowledgement, because this is not a distraction technique. This is an opportunity to practice acceptance and to move through the anxiety. The second part of the dropping anchor exercise is C, and that's coming back into your body. So you'll notice, you might have noticed I do this a little bit. We can press our feet into the floor. So this is about, you know, paying attention to what we can feel and sense in ourselves physically. So you might go up onto your toes or rock back on your heels. You might roll onto the outside of your feet or onto the inside of your feet. You might stretch up. You might reach forward, stretch your hands, move in ways that just really connect your thinking with what your body is doing as you move. And what this does is it takes our attention off the focus on the threat and, you know, whatever it is that's prompting the anxiety. It could be for kids, it could be the schoolwork. For us as business owners, it could be, you know, trying to sort of, you know, set ourselves up in a way that we can cope and continue to thrive under these circumstances. Bringing our attention back to our body is C, and E is engage in something that is meaningful for you, something that is important. So it's about taking our attention and turning it in the direction of what we can actually do in the moment. And the reason that part's very important, that's about taking action, is because when we're anxious, we often procrastinate and avoid. And that just serves to amplify the anxiety. So my second tip would be the dropping anchor exercise.
I love that. I've heard, and that's especially important right now, isn't it, with the increased screen time that we're having. So I imagine that just kind of getting out of this unusual environment and just going outside and just feeling the grass under our toes or doing something like that is a good one.
Yes.
And, you know, I actually have the same thing going on. There's someone doing exercise outside at the moment, doing drilling, so it's okay. It's helping us come back to the real world. And what's your third tip, Jodie?
The third tip that I recommend highly is asking a question of yourself when you are worried and you are ruminating over something. And so often we can get dragged away by our thinking. And when we ask this question, when we notice, first of all, it's about noticing that we are thinking, so observing a thought, and then asking the question, is it helpful? So often what we think about distracts us from what's really meaningful and important in the moment. Say, for example, at the moment, I'm having a thought. I'll share an example with you. I'm having a thought that if one of the dogs starts to bark again, then that's another interruption that I would really prefer not to happen. Now, I could spend a lot of time thinking about that, and I'm not being present here with you. So if I have a thought like that, I can ask myself, is it helpful? The answer to that question is no. What is helpful right now is to stay grounded, stay focused, stay present, and do what's important here and now. And I often get asked, well, what if what you are thinking about has truth in it? you know, because so often we ruminate over things that are false and have no factual basis. But even if you are worried about something that has truth in it, there's no different question to ask. The question is still, is this thinking process, is it helpful? And when the answer is a resounding no, then the next step is re-engaging back in what is helpful in that moment.
Thank you so much, Jodie. I think those just really simple tips to, first of all, monitor ourselves, to check ourselves, the anchoring exercise of acknowledgement, coming back into our body, into something like how we feel touching the ground, and that last one about engagement. And then that final tip was so practical and useful that each of us could apply right now. And so I'm so grateful that you would join us today, because I think this is such an important topic for this current season. Now, I'd love to know, you just said to me before we got into this call that you're almost finished your book. What have you got to promote? How can people find out more about you and what the awesome things that you're doing?
Oh, thanks, Kieran. Yes, so I'm really passionate about helping teachers and parents to support anxious kids to thrive. But what I'm finding more and more is that the parents and teachers equally need that support. So Michael Gross and I co-wrote Anxious Kids, How Children Can Turn Their Anxiety into Resilience. And that's available through my website. And I'm offering free postage. I'm paying for any postage of books at the moment, which is a free post or one word code in the coupon section on the website, drjodirichardson.com.au. But yes, you're right. I've just finished a book called Anxious Mums. And this is another Penguin book due for publication in November. So I'm really excited. So many mums have talked to me about their own experiences, and I share a lot about my own experiences with anxiety, as well as obviously my professional approach. And so hearing a lot of parents saying to me, look, these are my challenges too. This book is going to help a lot of people. So I'm really excited about it.
Well, thank you so much. So if anyone wants more information, don't forget to check out Dr. Jodie Richardson on her website. I'll also put the links underneath. And thank you so much for joining us today. I understand what the cost is with managing two children, two children, two dogs, and also what's going on next door. We wish you all the best, and thank you for sharing with us today.
Thank you for having me, Kieran. I'll see you soon. Bye.
Pleasure. Thanks, everyone.